It's delighted to see so many of you are here. I'm going to introduce the moderator here. It's Ms. Arundhati Dharu. She is a social activist and associated with National Alliance of People's Movement. She does extensive work on women's issue, empowerment issue, and food issues, and is also part of Right to Food campaign. Currently, she is working with Supreme Court as an advisor on the food security program. Thank you so much.
So I think this is the last session, but hopefully not the least important. And I think here we have enriched panel, and fortunately, I think there is supposed to be 5 speakers, but we are fortunate to have more speakers. But there is from the organizers, I've been told that we have a very strict time limit to observe, because we all have to finish by 3:30 and have to be there in the auditorium with all the IDs by 3:35. So I'm actually was planning to give 10 minutes each to speaker, but I'm planning to reduce it to 8 minutes so we can have more question answers for the session. So I request, let me introduce the panel. Rakhi Bakshi, she is a broadcasting professional with years of experience, and she's recently director of Women's Picture Service and also associated with Rajya Sabha TV. She's also conducting special shows, and she has also worked on with the Parliament of India and as a staff, and also associated with the Lok Sabha Speaker, and has extensively worked on the issue of the development agenda, looking at the role of very closely looked at the role of the government in this on the issue of masculinity and gender equity. So I'd like Rakhi to go first, if possible. Yeah.
So thank you all, Arundhati, and also the organizers. Very honored to be here. The second Men Engage Global Symposium 2014. Just as we were starting, we were just talking among ourselves and thinking we wanted more men to be here, but whichever number of men are here are especially welcome. Whichever few heads that we see, you're especially welcome here. And the idea that we are actually talking about, we've been talking almost all these days about how to actually engage more men into this whole gender dialogue. And that is the now current theme and the issue that we're really concerned about. So we'll just take, as she has strictly ordered us, a few minutes on the subject. So how can, and there has, of course, has been a study which UNFPA has come out. So let me first re-emphasize some of the things maybe you might have heard, but I would like to revisit it once for all of you here again. So let me just come out with a few points. So how can Indian men be motivated to stand up for the women in their lives? So the question is of motivation, first of all. What could be those key points of motivation that they come out of their own shell and come, become more comfortable in kind of understanding women? There has, of course, been a study, as you know, it's called Masculinity, Intimate Partner Violence, and Son Preference in India, which was released by UNFPA and ICRW. It takes a look at the average Indian male mindset. And now that we are talking about deconstructing this whole masculinity aspect, this study also helps us in understanding as to what goes inside the mindset of a man, and as to whatever gender violence we see in the cases of all these so-called pressure points, what actually goes inside the mind of a man. So let's try and understand that also. The notion of masculinity can be expressed in a variety of ways. So there is, the key point here is control, as to how in personal relationships or professional atmosphere, how a man shows his conduct towards the gender issue. So we have to look at that. We feel that the Indian women experience intense social and familiar pressure to produce sons also, and of course that's where men have to be understood much more as to why they are so keen on sometimes doing that. Of course, we also understand that at times women are also responsible. So looking at some of the statistics, let's go about judging from the responses of 9,205 men interviewed for this study. It is convinced that mardangi, as it is called in Hindi, or masculinity, is all about acting tough, freely exercising privileges to lay down the rules in personal relationships, and above all, again, controlling women. So let's look at some of the more points. 1 in 3 men we surveyed didn't allow their women's wives to wear their dresses of their own choice. So we are right now talking about all these dresses, who uses cell phones and why not. All these behavioral patterns are being looked at as to how men try to again control women through these, lifestyle gadgets, so to say, or dresses also come into that. 66% men believe that they had a greater say than their partners in important decisions that affect us. In the bedrooms, we have seen intimate partner violence happening, and 75% men again have more say as far as that is concerned. What are the patterns in terms of the states that we have? So there are certain patterns. I'll quickly go through that. 2 out of 5 men from the 7 study states of Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Odisha, and Punjab and Haryana were found to be rigidly masculine. And this is a study conducted after talking to so many men. But do we find maybe some emerging patterns in other states? We have to see that also. Quickly, some other points again. 60% of these men are admitted to using violence to assert their dominance. Within Odisha and Uttar Pradesh, we found highest incidence of intimate partner violence. We are also finding men with discriminatory gender views more inclined towards physically abusing their partner. So all this is happening around us. And so now, coming back to the issue of what role development sector can play. I mean, we are looking at all these studies and states, and these are some of the matters of concern. What can development sector can do? So let's look at, let me also take a few moments on WFS. Women's Feature Service works entirely on highlighting gender issues. So it documents each and every angle which is related to gender or women. And of course, this time, of course, we have also come out with an article on the subject, and we will be subsequently looking for more articles to concentrate on how men can be engaged in the gender dialogue. So now that we are emphasizing on this, we feel let's look at different categories which can be target groups as far as they can be looked at, how men can be engaged more. So let's one by one look at these categories. Let's, for example, talk about media. And we've been talking about what happens within media. So who controls, let's say, how a story would go. So who are the decision-making, people out there? Do we have enough women who are the leading voices who will decide what a story should be, or what should be the highlight of how the media is playing out in the entire spectrum? Whether men are, of course we know there are more number of men who are at the leading positions, a very few women are there. But whether gender stories, again, whether they get front page kind of space or not, whether they get a number 7 or 8 kind of space, or whether if they get any space, they are weekend slots that they get space on. So within media, in terms of management, we have to look at what's happening there. Certainly what's not happening there is our concern as to how women should get more say in positions, or should be coming out, with their stories which actually see the light of the day, rather than being suppressed because it's some Auraton ki story, like that. Other thing is within media organizations, how men and women behave with each other. So how men should be conducting, with women as far as their behavior is concerned. For example, in television, we have seen how women are looked at. So their exterior, their appearance becomes very important. So how men should be maybe more sensitive towards. We have seen some cases also where women had to actually suffer because of that. But how women should be just an inclusive part of it, rather than, being seen just as pretty images. So we have to actually look at that. And I think men, of course, have to look at that. But are they struggling with their own attitudes? When talking about engaging men, are men also struggling with their own attitudes? So that's where I think our role is, where we need to tell them, how it could be right as to how they view women. So, for example, on shoot, off shoot in television, we see how these kind of interplay goes on between a man and woman professional. So how that's where the area that where men can be maybe engaged, taught. Let's say there could be orientation programs, I would say. That's a suggestion that I was thinking about, where, these dialogues can happen within media organizations, where sometimes they don't even understand what's going on is wrong. So whether there should be more understanding towards understanding women who are their colleagues, understanding subjects which are really critically important, and find the page one kind of space, rather than pushing them to, gender kind of slot or human slots. So I would say one category we should be looking at is media organizations in terms of the managerial aspect, in terms of interpersonal behavioral patterns inside media organizations. Look at private sector. We are now addressing, and we are talking, of course, about glass ceiling, and all these, patterns are coming to be discussed or debated. But are we really looking at, again, how men and women within these corporate organizations or private sector are kind of understanding each other? whether patterns are changing, what men also think. I mean, what if there are some men who really think in a mature way and they know there's a global world out there where, women are equally talented and they need to come up. Whether such men, maybe few in numbers, are thinking like that and we are not looking at them. So let's look at those few men. Let's look at the minimal percentage and target them to make a larger group of men understand the issues of women. So that's another sector. Third sector, of course, Madam Preeti Sudan is here from the Government of India. But I think within government we have seen, largely that there is more understanding and maturity, but maybe certain things which sometimes we find suddenly comes up. So are we really missing some points out there? I think we should be looking at that also. Of course, Ms. Sudan maybe can highlight more on that as to how interpersonal behavior or relationships or professional, in professional platforms, men and women can really understand each other. So these are 3-4 categories we should be looking at, and that's where development sector, in terms of offering advice, suggestion, workshops, seminar, can matter. Of course, we have to educate boys, as we know. So in terms of going to educational institutions, interacting more with boys as they're growing, to make them understand, what is really becoming a real man and what exactly are the right definitions and not really the definitions of control and dominance. So that's another area that we have to look at. I think this is how, Arundhati, we feel that development sector can play a very important role. Thank you.
Thank you, Rakhi, and thanks for, And Rakhi has actually taken, I think, apart from, one of the major suggestion about looking at the critically analyzing the media houses and the role they play, and which stories really go forward and which stories are really killed. And but at the same time, I think she has actually, she has said it already. I'd like to introduce to our second speaker, and Preeti Sudan. She's the Additional Secretary in the WCD, in the Women and Child Development Department, Government of India. This is the ministry where most of the women activists fight with, and I think she is the one who is many times, I think, faces the brunt of the Indian women's movement, and many of us have thousands of issues and dealt with her, and like Preeti too, because this session basically looks at the role which is actually also with the whole issue of the development and how it looks into the whole issue of the masculinity and gender rights and equality. Preeti.
Good afternoon to the fellow panelists, Mrs. Dhuru, ladies and gentlemen. As Additional Secretary, Women and Child Ministry, I often talk to women about women. And today I'm going to talk about men and boys, to women again. I was hoping for some more men to be present, but thank you for all the men who are here. And I'd like to quote my experience. Maybe historically, the ministry has been having bad experiences with civil society or others, but my experiences have been extremely pleasant. I found so many collaborators, and I'm very grateful to one and all. I feel that if you come and bring an issue, it is not that we are on opposite sides. Actually, we are on the same side. So that's what I'd like to begin with. And next, now coming to today's topic of masculinities and gender justice, is there a role for the development sector? I think Rakhi has very eloquently put in a very comprehensive manner, her part of the story. Now let me try to sort of complete it and onto what she egged me to. In my view, I'd like to start with what Gandhiji said. He said that a feminine man is a better human being. If you look at our own Indian concept, then, we have this concept of Ardhanarishwar, which means that the man and the woman, we all have the man and the woman in us. And when there is a balance, I think we are all balanced, whether it is a man or a woman. So, if you have watched the last episode of Satyamev Jayate, where they sought to define the real man, I think it came out to me. I'm sure what was stated there was all what we knew, but the way it was flagged was done very sensitively and sensibly. I think the stereotyping and the socialization that we've done of boys has been such that we have denied men a lot. In fact, I feel quite compassionate about them. And I was thinking that what if you think, you see, the fatherhood is quite central and acceptable aspect of masculinity. But even there, if you see, very few men get involved in rearing and caring of the children. Studies have shown that fathers who are positively engaged in the lives of their children are less likely to be depressed, commit suicide, or be violent towards their wives. This study that I am quoting is by Morrell of 2003. And keeping this in mind, actually, not too in the past, government now sanctions paternity leave of 15 days to men. Frankly, if we do a survey, I'm not sure many men take this leave. So that's what I want to highlight. That though, you see, being a father is a matter of pride, but fatherhood, the responsibilities of fatherhood do not come easily to men, because their socialization is such that they've been, I would say they've been denied this. So I think men, please, the women here, grant that to the men so that they can really lead fuller lives. And in my inaugural address, I had said that the government has been engaging with men and women, I would say, more their engagement has been more activity based. We have programs, we have schemes, we have these, whole lot of activity based initiatives that government takes, whether it is rural sector, labor, our own. But we don't go what is below the fetishism, again I use that word, of activities. We don't engage or have a dialogue with the people involved, and especially the men and the boys. We did have we have institutionalized to some extent this dialogue with self-help groups, and therefore with women. And self-help groups also have become now an institution where actually women not only talk about their livelihood concerns, but they share and they talk about and find solutions of things which are much deeper and nearer to the heart and to their daily lives. So I think this sort of institutionalization of engaging with men has not happened. I await the proceedings of this symposium and hope that there will be some ways which will be highlighted on how a meaningful engagement can be done, because I feel it's very, very critical to the success of any program. The present government, if you will find, there is a definite, very, very aggressive, I would say, attempt to engage with the public, to engage with men, to engage with women. If you have seen mygov.in, that Sampark portal which Prime Minister has set up, I think it's a great thing. We have our Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao concept, and the drive that we are going to give, that drive that we are taking up where we are asking it to be a mass movement only if one and all the citizens, take it up as a mission, is also on mygov.in. And then these Charcha, Samiksha, which Prime Minister has been doing, even prior to going to Australia, he asked what would the nation like him to say there? What is it that he should highlight and prioritize? I think that's a very good initiative. And all the major schemes now of the government actually are asking citizens to be partners in development. And when we say citizens, it's not women alone, it is men for women, women for men, men and women. So this, whether it be Swachhta Abhiyan, whether it be our Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, I think there is any scheme or any intervention will be meaningless until there is a dialogue for it, there is an interaction. You ask, we tell, you ask. So I think that if you had heard Mr. Rahul Bose, I think he very eloquently brought out how his socialization took place that when he went to his friend's place and saw the mother in the kitchen, he said, "What, your father is out of station?" So that says it all. I mean, it's all here in the mind. So I would suggest and I would appeal to you that wherever you are, whatever sphere that you work in, and of course the development sector, in my view, is not only the civil society, the NGOs, but it is also the government. We have to together address mindsets, and mindsets cannot be addressed in a single day. It has to be done together in an interactive manner. And I think that there's a time limit, so I'll end here, and I look forward to an interaction with you too. Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti. And I think this is very important, and actually many of us who work with the government in many of the programs and also work as a woman activist and feminist have always felt this, we're getting stuck into the SHGs and activity mode and not going beyond and not really touching the major core of the issues. And thanks for raising those concerns and looking for the dialogue. We'll just go slightly outside India, and we'll actually have someone who has worked with men and boys in a larger program, and I'd like to have Shipa Hafiza, who is the Director of Gender Justice and Diversity in BRAC. Apart from, being the BRAC person, she's been one person who started their migration program, and she's leading it. But she's a pioneer of introducing gender quality action learning development intervention in Bangladesh, which contributed a lot to the gender equality in organization one side, in rural communities in Bangladesh on the other. So they are working both with the government and the rural community, communities, and they have been working with more than 390,000 households in Bangladesh, and with men and boys, and that's the largest program towards reaching people in this current year. So I'd like to have Shipa.
My respected chair, panelist, and audience. So, we believe that effective political will can change, bring about changes where women, men, girls and boys and others can really act as the actor of making a life which is peaceful, respectful and dignified. And it is possible to do. And we can use different methodology, use different kind of interventions to do that, considering the cultural context, the contextual specificity. Ultimate results that we are interested to see: a world free from violence and exploitation and discrimination, which will accelerate to the desired goal that we are all in. 12,000 people are in. So, BRAC, Gender Equality Action Learning, this is only one program of BRAC. Really, BRAC is a very large organization. It's the largest development organization in now. Only if I talk about Bangladesh and BRAC, NGO. But now BRAC works with another 12 countries. Every country is very war-ridden, most devastated, most poor, starting from Afghanistan, many countries of Africa, Asia also. So I'll talk about a very small program compared to BRAC, it is small. Program which is Gender Quality Action Learning Program, which is now covering almost 400,000 households. And also, this program also is covering another 160,000 students, neighbors, school management committee, local governments, and others, mostly against gender-based discrimination and violence within the household, and then they become the change agent for their own community, own village. Also, to combat against sexual harassment at public places, where the first we work with the students, school students, or boys and girls, 40% boys and 60% girls. But at the same time, this program works with the community, the shopkeepers, whoever around them, so that it is their responsibility to make a safe and respectful environment for their own children, and also government and police and all others. And these, there are also like another 100,000 frontline, if we say, barefoot equality promoter of men and women who are really working against this gender-based discrimination, violence against women and children, and also they are working as a change agent to transform the gender relations among women and men and the implicit and explicit power structure in the society. So when I say the implicit, it's like relationship within the household, who eat in, what plate, and even like whether women can take rest, whether it is valued or not, everything, a very small thing. If there is 3 eggs in a family and there are husband and wife and son and daughter, who eats what, who eats the half egg and who is the full egg, kind of a situation we work with. Program's results visibly are showing that man's gender role is changing, transformation around implicit power structure happening, as women and men and young people taking the ownership and becoming the change agent for their own self, their own household, and the communities. There are many study monitoring reports, results are there. So men are coming early in the evening to home because now they find their house is something which they enjoy, and they have the responsibility also to coming back. And wife is a person who they can talk to and share and respect also. So those kind of situations are happening. So I'm not going into numbers and things. But what is here, I'm hearing, it's not only, of course, BRAC, it's happening in many countries. And like a big contingent from BRAC came to this, like 9 of us came only from BRAC NGO. Then there are BRAC University, separate entity, university teacher also here. So we are going into different sessions to learn more and hearing many interesting change-making interventions that are happening in 100 countries, right? 93 we can say it, 100 countries. So why we wanted to work with men at the beginning? BRAC started working in 70s. We bring about men here and there when this whole solution BRAC is, teaching people to make this oral therapy solution for, attacking dehydration when you had diarrhea. So BRAC went to each and every household and teach every woman, young women, how to make it. And after a year, the realization is the retention of knowledge is there, but people are not really, anybody is not using, because men are not involved. The murabbi, older people of the family, in-laws, don't give the decision to take this water. Rather, they will say, oh, get some water from this drain and take it to the mullah so that he can give some fufu and then you can, give it to your child. Though these women, mother know that this is a bad water, but she had to, feed her child that. So we started working with men at that time. We bring about men and others in this intervention. But that point was not really from empowerment of women. It was more of a program achievement. So we kind of learning and doing and learning kind of situation went for a long time. So BRAC started largest education program, also the health service providing program, this microfinance program. But from 90, the realization has happened that, first of all, the staff has to be empowered enough to facilitate empowerment in the field. Because you have such a large number of staff. Now it's like more than 50,000 regular staff, at that time maybe 10,000. But these staff are very independently working in different areas. And if they don't know what is empowerment for themselves, how can they facilitate it? It came through many realizations. One story I'll just give. When 2 women were beaten by 4 or 5 men in a public place, thousands onlookers are there. They're looking and having just fun. Oh, okay, fine. You are treating women well. So what happened? What happened to BRAC's works for such a long time? So the question raised why this is happening. So we realized then, we have worked with women empowerment, mostly with very poor, extra poor or poor women. So yes, they have certain kind of empowerment, the solidarity, the connection building, the economic income, those kind of things, different skills.